All right, hey, this is Russ McClellan and Nicole Turner with Small Towns Unscripted one more time from the Sunset Marina. And they were really gracious to allow us to hold these podcasts here of our community members. And the one thing they'd like me to have you know is that they're willing to rent this out as an event center for people as long as it's not during the summer months. So all you got to do is get a hold of Jolene Baker, Caldwell Banker, or call maybe Mark Evans. He'll always find the right person. Mark loves it when you do that. So anyway, it's a great place to hold events. Get hold of Jolene Baker. We really appreciate it. Hope everybody enjoys our podcast.
Thanks so much.
Pat Kelly, welcome to Small Towns Unscripted.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Nicole Turner. I'm Russ McClellan.
Nicole, nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
I really...
Who's this guy?
It's going, yeah, it's live.
No, who's this guy?
Hector.
Oh, that's Hector.
Hector. I didn't get your name this morning, Hector. Okay.
He's the magician behind the camera.
All righty.
Yeah.
One of these days we'll get you in front of the camera, Hector. We'll interview you, and we'll let Nicole
You got to
do
tell
your
him where
job.
you're going, though. Remember that. Tell him where you're going to meet.
Yeah, we try to organize to get organized. The moment
It's
you're organized, I don't make
unscripted.
any money.
There is off-camera, what is that called when it's not B-roll, but
the
clips?
scenes?
Oh yeah, the funny clips that happen because
Yeah, bloopers.
Yeah,
Bloopers.
bloopers. Yep.
Bloopers,
We
yeah.
need to do a whole show. You know, one of these, we've done one of these now every week for over a year. I think we're at like 54 or 55.
Yeah,
And that's pretty amazing how fast time flies, right? And
Well, I think it's a really neat thing. Really neat thing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's funny how it started. We just basically thought there's so many changes and so many people moving here and people that have been here a long time that have their own authentic story, but we end up knowing of people a lot. We're all busy. We're all got kids. We're chasing this, chasing jobs. And we know, because it's a small enough town, we know that you work at a hardware store. Mm-hmm. I know Pat Kelly. I know of Pat Kelly. But do I know Pat Kelly? And I think the more we get to know each other, the original goal, and it still is, was hopefully when you get to know someone, you have more in common with them than you think.
Yep.
And when you have more in common, maybe empathy and understanding can maybe replace judgment and critique.
Compassion comes into play. Humility comes into play.
So that getting to know people instead of them. And then also a friend of mine told me a story, historically speaking, often what has been passed down in history has been the stories of politicians, whether it's countries or whatever, you know, that's the story they want you to know. But while these people are still around, it's cool to get the real story.
The real story.
And then their kids and grandkids and great-great-grandkids that aren't born yet. Someday, I wish I had it with my dad and mom. And, you know, so anyway, that's kind of why we did it, and it seems to be resonating, and people seem to be enjoying it. So.
yeah.
Well, you know, Cozy used to do that month of heritage. I know you remember that. And that month of heritage to me was, I've tried to talk them into doing it again. You know, they used to take people up to they'd do it up at the Apple Cup. They did it up there, and they filmed it and taped it. And of course, it was Steve, you know, Byquist, and thankfully, and I mean really thankfully, Dad was on that, and so was Gene. Of course, Gene's still here, and sharp as a tack. And my grandpa, they did my grandpa. So I have cassettes, you know, that Steve gave me.
That'd be cool.
Of those interviews, and they're just, I mean, they're
that's
worth.
precious.
That might be worth just playing them on a videotape.
Oh, I mean, they really are. They're just worth $1 million to me.
And I know the museum has a lot of neat historical photos and stories and things. So.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's well worth people's time to go in there. And I've done it a few times, and it's on my priority list. But you go in there, and they'll put you at the microfiche or whatever, and you can just start going through papers. And I'm not kidding, you know, with your background here, you can get in and you can just start in any year from the 40s forward.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you go through the Chelan mirror, and there'll be something about your folks or your aunt or your uncle, or I mean, someone's in there that you know.
Sure.
It's interesting.
So I'm curious about your history and your family's history. Like, how far back do you remember or know about where Pat Kelly came from? Where did your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, where did it all start?
So it's kind of diverse. I mean, if you want to start with my grandpa. So my grandpa, Grover Kelly, came out. He was born in 1886. He came here. I was told for years he came when he was 15, but he came when he was 20. Okay, he ran away from home. He had a dad that was a little hard on the boys, And so he left because all the boys were gone. There was one sister left, and their dad wasn't hard on her, and so he wasn't worried about her. He talked to her and he said, I'm leaving because I can't handle this. And so he got on a train, Effingham, Illinois,
Wow.
and he packed a carpet. They called them a carpet bag, and I know we've all heard of carpetbaggers, but that's actually what he called it, was a carpet bag. And he had a trunk, and he put a suit on. He had a nice wool suit, and he thought that he probably, at 20 years old, he thought he should be dressed nice. And he had some nicer shoes, and so that's what he wore on the train. He rode the train, and the closest the train came at that point was St. Andrews. And St. Andrews is up towards, Cooley City. It's in between Mansfield and Cooley City. All that's there now is a couple houses, and there's the old Grange Hall. But
Right, and there's a cemetery right in there.
Yes, yep, and that was St. Andrews. And St. Andrews was a little town then, like Mansfield.
Got it.
And so that's the closest the train got. So he got off the train there, and he asked the guy, and I think about this all the time. When I was 20, I was like wondering where I was going to get a beer, maybe that weekend, but I wasn't thinking about,
No.
not even close to as tough as those people were,
Right.
or what they had to deal with. So he asked the guy there, he said, how do I get to Chelan? And the only reason he knew he was coming to Chelan was because he had a brother that had left before him, and he was in Miners Basin up above Stehekin, mining for a company, or a guy, and he was closest to that brother. It was probably the one that was closest his age, I'm thinking. And so the guy pointed at Stormy Mountain from St. Andrews, because you can see it,
Right.
and he said, you need to walk straight towards that mountain. And so he walked, he took off walking with his carpet bag, and he actually walked to Chelan, and I can't remember how many hours it took, but it's like 16, 20 miles in a straight line. When he came to the ridge over here, the rim, okay, he hiked down an old wagon trail to down about where the BB Bridge would be now, and the Indians ran a cable raft back and forth across the Columbia, because Columbia wasn't dammed, obviously, at this time, right? And so they ran a cable raft for money back and forth that, it was a cable suspended across the canyon, and that's kept the raft from going downriver, right? So he paid to come across that, and then he hiked all the way up the grade. Of course, Chelan Falls was the big deal then. Chelan wasn't a big
Right,
deal.
right.
Chelan Falls was where the trade was, because everything was coming up the river on boats. Hiked all the way up to Chelan, and he stayed over by the Methodist church where the clinic is. There was a building there even when I was born. I don't remember it, but when I was born, and it was an auto court. And at that time, it wasn't an auto court, but it was a little inn or hotel. But it became an auto court, and an auto court was, there's one up in Okanagan. If you go through old Okanagan on the way to Omak, it's sitting there on the riverside, and there was a little garage right next to a room and a garage next to a room. They called those auto courts. Anyway, that's what that became, and he stayed there the night. He got up the next morning, and he actually decided that he needed to go back to arrange for his trunk because something had changed, and I don't know what that was. I don't have the details on it. So he walked back the next morning, all the way back to St. Andrews.
Now that he knew where he was going.
That's unbelievable. And and like I said, I read how many hours it was, and it's unbelievable. It was like 15 hours or something to walk that far, 14 hours.
And to them, it was probably like, do what you got to do.
Well, he knew. So anyway, he made arrangement, had the truck, basically came back again, had the trunk sent, okay, and he walked over to the boat company, right where we are now. The boat company was in the same place. Of course, the lake was lower, but the boat company was here in this bay. Darnell had a motel right here across the street. Did you know that?
The Darnells.
Yep, same family. He had Ernie Darnell. I believe it was Ernie. Maybe it was Ernie's dad, but he had a motel right across the way there for people to stay.
I didn't know that.
Weird.
Lakeside was a big deal. Lakeside was like Chelan.
Yeah, that's why the
Chelan
school's
Falls.
there, right?
There was a school, a post office, and separate address. All these lots up here on the hill are all Lakeside edition. Anyway, he walked over to the boat company, and he went and talked to the pilot. And he said, I got a brother up in Stehekin. He said, do you know if he's still up there? And he said, well, who is he? And he told him, he says, E.O. Kelly. And he said, oh, he's up in Miners Basin. He said, I know him. He said, oh. He said, they're snowed in for the winter. They're going to be up there working all winter, but they can't get out. And I'm thinking, you can't get out? How do you get supplies in? How would you get out if there was a medical? That just wasn't, that's the way it was. Food was salted, everything was preserved, kept, and they worked all winter. And if they did have to get a guy out, I guess they drug him out on a, couple of skids. I don't know what. Yeah. Anyway, he said, you can't get up there. And he said, well, what should I do? And he said, should I go up? And he said, well, if you want to go up, and he said, have you found work here? And he said, no. He said, well, if you want to go up, he says, there's a guy up there that might need a little help for the winter, and you might be able to work out a deal with him for work through the winter until you get to see your brother next spring. And he said, well, who's that? And he said, Bill Buzzard. And he said,
we were there at the cabin in Steak, and we were at Peggy's.
Yeah.
Bill Buzzard's original cabin still standing.
Yeah, we looked at it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's still standing.
I didn't recognize
We
that
filmed
name for some
Peggy
reason.
and Wendy Garfoot right in the Buckner Orchard.
Oh, did you?
On
Perfect.
a picnic table.
Perfect.
They talked
Well,
about
that was-
Bill Buzzard.
Yeah, we walked in the cabin, and I think we have that
And it's
on
been
our
added
videos.
on too. You can tell the original, and then they added on, and then they got that big old rock
I
fireplace.
think that was
on the
Wendy
end of it.
Garfoot's place
Yeah.
for like 20 years before the government has it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Historical site now.
Anyway,
Small
well,
ones.
her husband worked for the Park Service.
Yeah.
He was a dandy. Anyway, so he said, you can make your mind up. You can go up in, if he doesn't need anyone or doesn't need any help. But he said, but he's not in too good a health, and he puts firewood up for the boat company. He sells us firewood because it was wood fired,
Mm-hmm.
And
The boats were powered by wood.
Yep, boilers.
Boilers.
Had a boiler. And he said, if not, you can come back down late. And he said, okay. He says, well, I think I'll do that. So he went ahead and got on the boat, had all of his stuff packed because he walked all the way over here. And this is another thing we don't think about. You and I, well, we got to run the boat. You get in your truck in 2 minutes. He walked all the way over, and, everything was different then. So anyway, he got on the boat, and he got to, here we are again. You got to think, 20 years old. You're clear across the United States from where you were raised. You don't know anyone. And his wheels are spinning, He was a smart kid, but he was 20, and he was male.
Mm-hmm. Got diverted to Lucerne, did he?
Oh my God! No, he's thinking, how do I know that? I don't know how to find this guy when I get up there. So he went back up to the pilot, and he said, how am I going to find this guy when I get up there? And he goes, oh, don't worry. And he reached under the pilot seat, and he pulled out a fifth of whiskey, and he said, he never misses a boat. And Grandpa said, you're kidding me? And he said, no. He says he drinks pretty heavy. And so I kind of wanted to look into that, and so I asked Grandpa the history of Bill Buzzard. Well, Bill Buzzard had been a sheriff in Idaho, and he had killed a man in the line of duty. Now this is late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah. It wasn't any different then than it is now. He was having trouble with it. He couldn't, even though he was the sheriff and maybe he was in the right, he'd taken a guy's life, couldn't deal with it, and he wanted to escape.
Yeah, right. So that was your dad's dad? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, this is Dad and Jean, Marvin, my Aunt Phyllis, my Aunt Lois, my Aunt Odile.
So how many kids were in your dad's siblings did your dad have?
There were 6 altogether.
6 altogether.
Yeah, Marvin was the oldest, and then Odile, and then Phyllis, and Dad, Lois, and Jean.
So
Jean's a baby.
Who, what was your dad and mom, what did they end up doing later in life? What did they?
So my mom's mother, she moved here in, her family, they moved here in, holy smokes, what was it? I think, so Grandpa got here in 1906 when he ran away. I think Grandma got here in about 1900. Her mom and dad moved here from Adair, Iowa. And he had been a school teacher, and word was getting around about Washington and territory and the state and whatnot. Anyway, they came out, and there was work just like Manson. All the dust. That was a huge influx during the Dust Bowl days.
Yeah.
There was an earlier influx, and I don't know exactly what the deal was, but there was a lot of people that had heard about the lake. That was an interesting thing to me, you know, and knew about it. But I don't think that's why they came out. But they came, fruit industry. There was people growing apples back then. So he came out, and his name was not Frank Sinclair. That was my mom's stepdad, Larson. So his name was Larson, or my grandma's dad, and they homesteaded when they got here. They homesteaded, and my grandma was 4 months old when they got here. Mm-hmm. They homesteaded. So I'm going to call it the Schwartz property, and other people are going to know it by Dinty Bigger. Dinty Bigger lived on the property for years, and it's pretty much almost straight across from Lucerne. Mm.
They homesteaded up lake.
Yes.
Wow.
He homesteaded that piece. I've got the homestead papers still.
Is it still in the family?
What's that?
Is it still in the family?
No. Nope. In fact, it sold last year summer before last. It sold during the peak of the fire up lake. It closed. And it was really interesting because the fire had gone through there. And the guy signed when he found out it didn't take down the houses, because there's 3 houses. Schwartz has got that kind of a high-peaked, it's not an A-frame, but high-peaked house on the bluff right across from Lucerne. Mm-hmm. That was Schwartz's house, so that's the property. He homesteaded that, and if you go by, Russ, in your boat, where the dock is, you know, there's a crib dock there. And if you look, there's a dirt road that goes up to that, you know, back into that kind of canyon where the house is and whatnot on the point. If you look really close, you're going to see there's about 6 remaining apple trees that my grandpa planted.
Wow.
Oh.
Sorry, great-grandpa. My great-grandpa planted. Yeah, Larson. He was gonna have orchard up there, just like you know, the Buckners did up there. Yeah. They shipped everything down in boxes, and that's what he was going to do.
I wonder if
so. He planted the orchard. He built a house. I was looking at a picture of the house last night with my grandma, my great-grandma standing outside, my grandmother, who's the youngest, and 3 other sisters. So this gal's up there with 4 girls, and her husband's built a house. There's no windows in the house. There's a stove. There's shutters. No windows.
Wow.
And of course the lake's over where the house was now, because the lake got raised, but you can still see the orchard, which was above the house. You can still see, like I said, 4 or 5 of those trees. Still fruit bearing, 2 of them are.
Interesting. I wonder what was going through their mind, if it was just a matter of all this land down here was taken in the Homestead Act, and that's just what was available, or if it was maybe quite the opposite, like that's the more preferred land.
I don't know how much homestead land was left down here, maybe. And you know, everything was, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, back then, pretty much everything was remote. Everything was a job to get to town, you know. Right. I just covered up my mic there. You know, it really was. Yeah. And there was a boat running, and they knew that, and supplies could be brought up. Your land was just to be worked. I mean, a lot of people didn't have electricity. A lot of people didn't have, you know,
there's no pumps. You know, there's
no pumps. Nope. And so you were pulling water out of the lake. You know, it was steep. And this picture blows me away, because here's this mother and 4 daughters standing outside of the house, and they're hoeing cabbages, and these cabbages are like this big around on that hillside, and they're in hoop dresses. Can you even imagine that? I mean, if anyone did that now, they'd be in jeans and work clothes. No, they were in hoop. That's what you wore. They're in hoop dresses, and they're hoeing these cabbages, and I'm looking at the no windows, and he was down lake because they were having trouble making ends meet, and so he was down lake working. Well, he ended up getting sick down here, and he died. And I don't even think she got down here before he died.
This is your dad's dad died.
This is my grandma Kelly's, my grandpa Kelly's wife's mother and father.
Got it.
Yeah, and their name was Larson. Anna Larson was my grandma, who was married to Grover Kelly. Anyway, yeah, so she ended up coming down because she couldn't work the homestead. She couldn't work it through the winter with these girls. I mean, my like I said, she was 4 months old when they got up there. And so they had to come down, and she ended up getting remarried, and she married a gentleman by the name of Sinclair. My grandma and grandpa, from what I understand, so Grover, he's up lake now with Bill Buzzard, right? And he ended up coming down after he saw his brother. He worked there putting up firewood for Bill that winter. he was at Moore's Point when they had a hotel there, getting something to eat. And I am not sure exactly the circumstances, but I know that one of the first jobs he had that spring, after he spent the winter with Bill Buzzard, he got a contract with the Forest Service to run a phone line from Chelan to Stehekin. And so he worked for, now I'm not gonna be able to call the name, and that's what my grandpa used to say. He'd say, I can't call that name right now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't say this name. Anyway, Susie, and if I say the name, people are gonna know it. They lived right across from the Forest Service. You know that house that Brandon Augustinelli remodeled a number of years ago that's right above the Forest Service? That was their house. Bennett's.
I was going to say
Claude
Susan
Bennett.
yeah.
I got it. Okay, so Claude Bennett's dad was the one that helped Grandpa do that job. And they actually strung wire from tree to tree with insulators out of boats, and they had to throw ropes up over limbs and go up the trees, and they did that from Chelan to Stehekin for a phone line.
It's funny.
Isn't that crazy?
That reminds me of my dad. We lived out in Manson and had a frost pocket. It's probably one of the coldest orchards in Manson, I think, and my dad was always down there.
Okie Flats?
Okie Flats, yeah. And
Okie
then
Flats.
He'd be down there in the trailer most of the time, and and he'd call all the other farmers when it got cold. He'd look at the thermometer every 5 minutes. I don't know how he worked all day and worked all night and worked all day. I don't know how he did all that. But then when the tech got there where they could have a frost alarm, they ran a thermometer in the bottom of the orchard, then they ran wire up all the way up to the top of the hill where it wasn't a frost pocket, in through his bedroom window into a box. And then he still wouldn't trust it.
No.
So it's like, Dad, you might as well just.
Well, it's your old crop.
Yeah, it's
you
your
know,
old and everybody else's, because he was like the frost alarm for all his buddies.
Yeah.
Shermans and Sackett's and all the people, right? Like, and it's just funny how now you can't really think about going back even further, and you got a phone line going all the way
to Stehekin.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Anyway, so he went in at some point or another. He went into Moore's Point, to the Moore Inn, and they had rooms, but they also had food there. They had a little restaurant. And he went in to get something to eat. Well, my grandma waited tables in there. She walked from their house all the way. There was a trail, evidently, the North Shore Trail now, but I don't know if it was them, but she had a trail. And she'd get up in the morning and walk up there, and she'd do beds and, laundry and of course, this kind of laundry, and wait on tables, and they met there. And they ended up getting married.
Sparks flew.
Yeah. So they ended up coming back down to Chelan, and Grandpa worked for the Pennell Mill. He worked for Walls, Harry Wall, George Wall, for years, doing millwright stuff, anything to do with logging and mill work, filing saws, all kinds of stuff. They moved from the Entwine. They moved up lake by Analon, out past Analon. They had a logging operation going on. Anyway, he did that for years. He also worked for a guy named Dunham that had a brickyard, and the brickyard was right in front of the Caravel or the Grandview. Of course, out further because the water hadn't been raised. And Gene Dunham had a brickyard there. And Grandpa made brick, and he also did masonry work. And one of the jobs he did that was a funny story is I used to love to go listen to him. My dad and I'd go down and visit him because he just lived a couple blocks from us, and we'd go down and he'd just go through these stories, and I just sucked him up like a sponge. Yeah. But one of the jobs he got was building the bank in Waterville, which is on the corner. You probably know where it is. You've probably looked at it, and it's a beautiful building right downtown Waterville. And the bank building had terracotta shipped out from the East Coast, and it was very fragile. And so Gene Dunham, the stuff got shipped out in a boxcar, packed full of straw, in cases, and the railroad didn't have the contract on the farm line to bring that boxcar down right into downtown Waterville, so they could unload that terracotta. And they pleaded and pleaded, and one guy even went clear back to D.C. and pleaded while the bank was being built to see if they'd let him use that farm line, and they would not budge. And so Grandpa suggested they just go up at about 2 in the morning and unhook the boxcar and steal it.
Wow.
And Gene he said, that's a good idea, Grover. And so they went up and they rode the brake. They had a guy riding the brake, and they had a couple horses on the back of the boxcar to back it up, and they took it down into town, and they unloaded all the terracotta.
Creative solution.
They pulled it back up with horses and hooked it back up and never said a thing.
I don't know how it happened. Magic.
Isn't that something?
That makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Even back then, some of the government rules didn't make sense.
Well, they don't. No, you got to use common sense, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
At least it worked out, though.
like diving off the bridge. What's that going to hurt you, huh? I don't know. I'm sure you never did it.
No.
I didn't dive.
I never did anything.
I jumped.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, so
Technicalities.
that was kind of a funny story. But anyway, they had all these kids, right? And Dad, to stick to my family, I'm sorry, but Dad
This is great.
worked all the time. In fact, we were just talking this morning at the store. Dad worked at the Chevron station, right where it is now in town, that Marty Wasson and his wife owned. He worked at that Chevron station on his lunchtime at junior high school.
Oh, yeah.
Now, can you imagine that today? He'd leave school and go over there and work for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he'd go after school and work a shift clear till like 7 at night. And that money went to Grover and Anna.
That was pretty common, right? Everybody had to do whatever
was a
they
lot.
had to do to make it work, right?
Yeah, I had 6 kids. They had a boarding house right where the vet's office is in Chelan there, by the newer bridge. Rich Thompson's old, vet office. That's exactly the property that Grandpa lived on, and they had rooms on the side that he, had been built there, and then she served food. They called it a boarding house.
So I know Gene and your dad did the hardware store. What did the other kids?
So Marvin was the oldest. He left. He was very, very educated. Gene graduated from college. He was the youngest, and Marvin graduated, and he was the oldest. But the ones in between didn't go to college. None of the girls or my dad went to college. So Marvin went into the Navy, and he worked like he was way up in the Navy. Wow. Anything Marv did was pretty much that way. He got involved with Masons and worked his way all the way up. He was involved with the Navy, same thing. Anything that he did, that's just kind of how he did it. So he was in Seattle. When he left, he was in Seattle his whole life. He and his wife bought a house up on Magnolia, an old little brick house. He had 2 boys. They were raised there, and which is kind of interesting. Their oldest boy, Doug, and my sister and I we're almost same age group apart.
Cousins.
And same thing with my mom and dad. They just had Mike and I.
Yeah. I bet that house in Magnolia's worth a few bucks now.
Oh gosh, yeah. Could you imagine?
Magnolia is a very expensive place.
She just moved out of the house out to Whidbey at 102. Muriel.
Wow.
Yeah, she's living with her. She's living in the little apartment in one of her granddaughter's houses on Whidbey, Langley. She's 102. 102. Yeah,
that's a pretty good run.
That's
sharp
amazing.
as a tack, Muriel.
Yeah, that was my grandma Daisy was sharp right up to the end.
Oh, your grandma was something.
She was
I knew your
101.
grandma well.
Yeah. I was just talking to.
Yep.
We just had.
And I knew her through Fayette, which is interesting.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I tell a story about Faye's house a lot. That was in Riverwalk.
The only house my dad didn't get. Do you know that?
Oh really?
That's the only house he didn't get because Dick Swindell was bidding on it. And Dick went up to 10,000, and my dad wouldn't go any higher than 10,000 because Bates told him, what it was going to cost to move that house. And
the
that was
whole
funny.
park was houses that had to be picked up and moved.
Yeah.
It was like eminent domain and for the park, right? But
Yeah.
that was like bittersweet, right? Like for the long term, it was a good deal probably for the overall.
Yeah, no, that park is very well used.
Yeah.
I mean, very well used.
But
It's
difficult
definitely
if
an
you were
asset,
those
but boy,
people.
it was hard.
Yeah.
It was
That was a
hard for
beautiful
people
house,
that
too.
lived there. No one wanted to leave. My Aunt Zelma and Uncle Gene Pasley lived right next door to us. They had the brick house behind the Episcopal Church, and they did not want to leave. It was really hard on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Your dad was.
Your dad been in on all the other ones though that had to move.
Dad, we had kind of a busy 1984. That was 1984, and a lot of stuff happened that year. I got married that year. Just lots of stuff happened. But
What
he
year did
moved.
you graduate high school?
79.
79. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he moved. I always have to count them, but if I'm pretty sure it was 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He moved 7 houses in 1984. Well, Don Bates moved them for him.
Where did he put them?
They're all over town. He had, the orchard up above the hospital, and that property wraps over the hill and comes down to the side of the hospital and meets Nixon. And we used to call that Suicide because we used to sled up there, and it was called Suicide Hill because it's straight down. You'd end up going clear down and hitting the intersection, and you had to have guys watch for you because you'd blow through that intersection, and if you wanted to, you could go through and then go down the next intersection and come down by the ball field.
Got to get the right guy to trust.
But anyway, he cut 2 houses in there. So Lippincot's old house, or Highlands old house. Not Highlands, I apologize. Lippincot's house, a lot of people would know it as Sloggenhops. I'm sorry, before that, owned that house. So that house is up Nixon on the left-hand side. Gene and Zelma Pasley's house is right before it on the left-hand side. Both cut them into the hillside. He used Don Marshall, used Doug Clearwater's.
Wow.
Don Bates moved everything. That's amazing, watching that stuff. That was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
The 2 houses that were off the old bridge in the entry into the park, at the base of the one-way that they closed off right there, there was a duplex that sat there that Campbell's owned, and then there was a single-unit apartment that sat right next to it that Campbell's owned. And he moved both of those. They're over right next to the Bridgeside offices. So if you look to the left of the Bridgeside offices, you'll see those 2 units sitting right there.
So when did your dad and Gene, they were the original owners of the hardware store, right? Or did they buy it from somebody else?
No, when Dad came back, he worked a couple of jobs, and he wasn't finding anything permanent because jobs were tough to come by. He actually went...
He came back from what?
World War II. Sorry about that. He went into World War II in 40. He didn't go in 42. He went in 44, and he came out in 46.
Was he drafted or was he enlisted?
No, I think he joined. I think he knew. I think he knew that if he joined, he'd kind of maybe
Get a better deal.
get to have a And what he did was he had Terry Ward, because he worked for Ward's Bakery, which is where Lake Chelan Properties used to be, where the insurance company and financial, Jordana's financial deal there. Evergreen Financial. Yeah. That building was Ward's Bakery, and you were in there years ago with
I was in there for 10 years,
right?
Yeah.
So the back
Bernice
of that building,
I bought it from Bernice.
Right,
And
when
I
Tony
was partners with
Stokes,
Ron Sturtz and Ron Bedden.
Yep. When Tony Stokes remodeled the back of that and put those windows in, I don't know if you remember that in the alley.
Yeah.
The paint came off, and you could see Ward's Bakery still painted
funny.
on the back of that building in big black and white.
Yeah,
letters.
Ron had the back, his accounting firm.
Yeah.
And then I was in the front.
They had those
2/3.
windows cut in high, and that's where it came up. Tony said, God, I hate to cut these windows in. We're going to wreck that sign,
It's still in that building. My mom got when she was at Seafirst for 25 years, she was given a brass, art piece that was made for the lake, and it's in that on the brick.
Is it?
Yeah, that was her 25th anniversary of working at Seafirst. That's still in the building.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Your mom was a dandy. I loved going to her when I went into Seafirst. She and Mary Davis both. I loved them both.
Mary
They were
Davis.
just dandies.
Erlene Jackson.
Yep.
Chris Eldor.
Yep. Door stamps. There was a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let me take my money out. She'd be like, no, you're not. You don't need to take that out, Pat.
It's fun. I don't know if you probably.
And she meant it.
You meant it.
She did. I'm going to call your mom.
I'll call your mom. You can't. Yeah, it's funny. My mom tells me a story about. They did a contest, right? And my mom was not a salesperson, right? But she was sweet. And everybody loved her because she was always friendly. And so she's at the bank, and they got a contest to see who can get more deposits. And if you get deposits, the Seafirst thing, which was a big bank at the time. And she just kind of mentioned it to a few people, and next thing you know, I think like Sid Breaker, and some pretty good-sized money guys all of a sudden just said, "Oh, here you go." A bunch of money came in. She won a trip to Hawaii. She hit the top thing 5 times, and they're like, "Oh, what's no big deal? We'll just put a few more bucks in there for you, Patty." And it was just like,
wasn't from high pressure salesmanship. No. It was because they liked her.
Yeah, I just liked her, and she. Got
By the way, I went on a trip to Hawaii. You know,
my dad's like, "What did you do to get all?
Yeah.
You buying these things on a credit card? What do you do? No, it's free." Yeah, it was just people like that was fun about her. She loved that because she could meet so many people. She had so many relationships that she developed, and so many people have told me, I always searched out your mom, and then she passed up being promoted many, many times because she wanted to be able to come home and not have the responsibility.
Nope, there's a lot of people like, I don't blame them,
No,
you know.
No, it was a good time. And Seafirst was a great company. Mike Tempe was their manager for a long time.
Mel Hammer.
Yeah.
Harold Simonson. I don't know if you remember Simonsons, but all of their kids but one were raised here.
I remember just riding my bicycle in elementary school and swimming all day, and then throwing it in the back of my mom's car.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Come in and cruise the gut in Chelan.
I can only do it one way. It's too hard to get back.
You're looking after those Chelan girls, so you're trying to steal them. Yeah, we used to go out to their dances and steal their girls. So Russ was coming in after them in the summertime.
Paybacks,
Yep.
So when did your dad and Gene were the only two founders of Kelly's Hardware, right?
So what happened was Dad, like I said, Dad came back from the war. He worked a little bit, and then he knew, because he had Mike. He and my mom had Mike, because she was, she'd been born. And so anyway, he needed a full-time good job, and I mean, he had a great work ethic and everyone liked him, but there just wasn't anything really going on. And so he went and got Barney Slogenhop Sr. So this is Jim's grandpa, right? The kid's grandpa. Because a lot of people don't know there was a Barney. I'm just saying this because a lot of younger folks don't know there was a Barney Sr. But anyway, Barney Sr. had Slogenhop Insurance before Barney Jr. did and before Jim did.
Wow.
He had come up from Kennewick, Tri-City area, I should say, following Jim Reed. Jim Reed's dad was down in that area with a hardware store. Well, Jim wanted a hardware store of his own, and they knew that the store in Chelan was for sale, and it was called Chelan Hardware and Furniture Company, and it was a wood frame building sitting right where the post office is doing business with their vans right now, which is very unfortunate for those folks. I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Anyway, that wood frame building sat right where their parking lot is behind the post office, facing Emerson Street. And there's pictures of it if you go to the museum. So it had been in existence. Jim bought it in 1925.
Wow.
Okay. It had been in the big, so we're over 100 years old. The store, its existence is over 100 years old. I don't know how far back, because I couldn't find out when Chelan Hardware and Furniture Company started. I tried to find out when we did our 65th anniversary a few years ago. This is our 67th year in business as a family.
Wow.
But the store was purchased by Jim Reed in 25, so it's actually, I'm calling this the 100th year of Chelan Hardware, because that's what he called it.
That's cool.
That is very cool.
Anyway, Dad went and got a hold of Barney Sr. because he knew him real well, and he felt comfortable with him. He said, I need a job. And Barney said, I think Jim's looking for someone, but he really wants someone that's going to do a good job. He said, I have no problem taking you over and introducing you, but he said, Jim's a little, he's pretty stoic and pretty serious. And so he took him over and introduced him, and Jim hired him. And he liked Dad so well. Jim didn't like to be around people much. He was a real good businessman, but he wasn't a personable guy that was on the floor selling stuff. He was all business. Dad was that face of the business and became that face of the business. Plus, he took on a lot of other responsibilities. And he worked his way up there, and Jim paid him well. And in '58, Jim came to my dad, and he said, I'm done. He said, I want you and Vivian to buy the store. So he went home and talked to Mom about it, and it was a big decision. I mean, big responsibility financially.
Big risk.
Yes. And so they talked it out, and they worked everything out, and they decided to do it, and they went ahead and bought the store. Well, then Dad got a hold of Gene later on that year, Gene had graduated from Eastern Normal School, which is now Eastern Washington University. Gene was a big basketball player, which a lot of people don't have a clue because he's not that tall, right?
Yeah.
He was like a number one ball player for them.
Wow.
And so he played for Red Reese at Eastern, and
That's cool.
they had a really good team. Did really well. In fact, there's a whole Red Reese room over at Eastern and everything else because of those years in basketball. They really excelled, and Gene was on that team. Anyway, he had graduated from Eastern with a degree in teaching and coaching, but there wasn't any jobs that he wanted to take. Right. I mean, there was very few jobs anyway, but he didn't want to move to where. So he was selling cars in Moses Lake for Wendy West, Cease West's brother. And you remember Cecil West from here? Okay, so Wendy was his brother. He was a big rodeo caller, and that's where Wendy came from. They called him that because he was, he'd like announce events and rodeos and stuff, and that's where he got that name, from what I understand. Anyway, Gene knew him through Cease, and he went to work for him selling cars at a used car lot in Moses Lake, and it's like Gene would say to this day, he said, one day was steak, and 2 weeks later you might get Spam. For 3 weeks, and then you might get steak again. And that's the way it was. It was just up and down.
Yeah.
And so Dad asked him if he wanted to come back home and work at the store and try it out. And he said, well, he'd try it. So he came in and he ended up buying into the store a little bit later than that.
How close in age were your dad and Gene?
Dad, they were 7 years apart. Dad was born in 21, and Gene was born in 28. So
your dad was the senior of the brothers.
Yeah, out of the two
By
brothers.
6 years,
Yep.
yeah.
And I never saw them fight.
That's so freaking cool. That does not happen. You always see family fight.
And so then it became Kelly's Hardware about then, when your dad.
Dad started changing the name from Chelan Hardware to Kelly's Chelan Hardware. He kind of wanted to ease it in because he didn't want to irritate anyone, and because it's funny, stuff like that does.
It's funny how it's still
it does.
that way.
It does.
Years
that to
later,
people.
even now, if you did something, it's like when I bought Lake Chelan Properties, I had Frontline Real Estate, and so
Right.
I was like Chelan Properties, Frontline Real Estate. It took me a few years to drop Frontline Real Estate. Then when I sold Lake Chelan Properties to just went blank on Swapper Point.
Yeah.
George?
Yeah.
George Shukart.
Yep.
And then George Shukart sold to Adam. But I sold George Shukart. I took Frontline back, but the names were very important because Bernice and Morgan and Tom
That's all
Hammonds.
how they identify
Tom
everything.
Walters.
Walters.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're all part owners in the beginning, and there's a lot of respect there. So you do got to be careful.
I can still remember your sailboat logo.
Yeah, I know.
I like that logo.
Yeah,
Isn't that logo?
No, everybody gave me a hard time. There's no sailboats out here. I'm like, there's one right there.
Well, there is during a sailboat race.
Since when did I ever?
Always
I
looks
was a
relaxing.
conformist. I don't think anybody ever
I
accused
know.
me of that.
My favorite thing still was, I can't remember who we were talking to on the podcast, but you were like, my dream is to be on a sailboat and to be going super fast, but have calm water.
That's all I need.
And the guy was like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, sorry, Russ. It's
You've
hard
never
to do
been on a
that.
sailboat, have you?
No.
No.
That's a dream. Maybe AI will fix that.
Yeah.
So what's so then your dad, you were 84. When did you meet your wife? When did you guys, was she Chelan?
No, you said 84. What do you?
No, you were graduated 79.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry,
They got
79.
married.
No,
in
84 was the year we had all the stuff going on, the houses being moved and everything.
And
I
you
got
got
married in
married.
84. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you met your wife in high school?
No, I actually I've been married twice.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people don't know that, but I married a Manson girl, and she left town. She had a kind of a tragedy in her life, and she ended up moving away. And so about a year and a half, 2 years later, I started dating Linda, who I went to school with. We were in the same class together.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And anyway, we ended up getting married. We got married in 1992, February 14th.
There you go.
So I wouldn't forget it.
Valentine's. If you do, you're in double trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful
Yeah.
about that one.
Yeah, so that was when I was just 30, and then the next 30 years were just gone because, of course, that November, right before Lynn and I got married, was when Dad had his accident.
And how old was he at that point?
70.
70. And if I understand right, he fell from a ladder?
Yeah. Yeah, he fell off a ladder out in our warehouse. And he did make it to the back of the store, but he had landed, had a hand injury, and he'd broken his collarbone. And it was just a little after 6 when we'd closed, and Gene and John Fragnito were actually in the back of the store. I was in Mexico, which to this day it bothers me. But John actually said to Gene, he said, well, I better let you go because the store was closed. They were just in the back talking. And John blew out the back door and
found him. Yeah. You must have been working, how long, you remember how long you'd worked there before that? Were you working there?
Before, how long I'd worked there?
How long you'd worked there before?
I went to work there in '83 when I got out of school. I went to Yakima Valley College for 1 year with a bunch of buddies. Andy Griffith and I lived together. Kenny Jenkins and Jeff Laporte
There's no fun had there.
lived right down the hall.
You guys.
I don't know how we learned anything.
I loved
anyway.
Life lessons.
And then I went to Eastern for 2 years, and I was with Andy there for a year, and then I was with Rich Simonson for a year, who I just said, Harold, his dad was president or manager of Seafirst here. And then I went to Western for a year with Mike Burns. That was quite a year too. Anyway.
You made your rounds.
Yeah. So I came back and bought into the store. Bought some shares. There was Floyd Conway was actually leaving the store, and he had actually was one of the only stockholders, other than my dad and Gene, that they'd never sold stock outside of the family, and so I bought Floyd's stock that year.
So that had to be. I know it's very emotional, so I appreciate you talking about it, and I'm very humbled by your sharing. Tragedy like that at a young age, and then you, I'm assuming, then you took over your dad's position with Gene.
Yeah. I had a lot of. I had a lot of responsibility in the store, and I mean, I'm trying to be humble. I think I was a responsible person at 30 years old, but my sister and I had to take on a lot of stuff because Dad had rental houses that he'd built, that he'd moved. He had the orchard, up above the hospital that he had planted.
Sounds like your dad was a hell of an entrepreneur.
He loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
he
great.
lived for adventure.
Well, you obviously, are very passionate and loved your dad very, very much. And, I was very close to my dad too, and I got a lot of years out of it, and I'm very lucky for that. But it had to be a very interesting point in your life, like, to get through that and then to decide what to do next. Because that had to be it's obviously such a traumatic shock. I imagine Gene was also very.
Oh, Gene was shook.
Yeah.
Yeah, very. It
maybe the whole town. I mean,
it did. It shook everyone. And even though Dad was 70, he was in better shape than I am now. I'm 65, and it was unexpected, and so it was really hard. Yeah, really hard. So I had to, even though I was grown up, I had to do a lot of growing up, and I had to take on a lot of responsibility real quick. And I just, I'm so thankful I had Gene.
Yeah.
He's still out there working hard, running around his orchard, probably smoking a cigar.
97.
Is he 97?
97.
What a great guy.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's neat that your family's so tight like that. I mean,
it is. It's really rare.
And I know, from the outside looking in at Kelly's Hardware, I can tell you what I see. Stoicism, calm, cool, collected. Nothing bothers you. Everything's always good. You're always making money. There's no problems ever. Is that true in entrepreneurship?
No.
No. Because from the outside looking in, you guys portray rock solid foundation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it when Walmart went in. I was like, that must have been an intimidating, like on one hand, because you don't really, unless you, like a lot of small businesses get massively impacted by that. You know, like Tony at Red Apple, I know, went through he had to make some adjustments. And I think was that, if you had to look back at the times in history, and I bet you were really tied to the egg business. Like
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. When I look back at things that I guess worried me, you know, that I thought we're going to have to do something about this. When I look back on my perspective, and I don't know, you know, I'm not speaking about Gene or Dad, but just me. And of course, you know, the younger you are, I think you tend to worry more. You know, you don't. I mean, now I have a completely different, the last 25, 30 years, I have a completely different perspective. But when I was like 30 and under, like you said, I can remember when there was a shift in the ag business, you know, and we did a huge irrigation business with farmers, huge irrigation
What was it, 87 was ALAR, right? So
yeah,
there was that.
Yeah. Anytime the apple, you know, the fruit economy got hurt, we got hurt because, you know, you're carrying contracts. I mean, contracts, accounts,
credit,
I'm sorry. And, you know, we had at one time, we had over 3,000 in-house accounts.
Wow.
And that can get into your bank account real quick, you know, if someone's not paying. Not all of them were hugely active, but we did have that many accounts. We had about 1,700 probably that were active for a while, for years.
What were some of the major concerns that you went through in your store?
You're going to laugh at this. The first one that I remember, which wasn't a big deal, but it was to me,
in your head,
was when George Freeman, who owned Valley Hardware, they were our competitor, right? And we got along with George, liked George. George liked us, but they were still a competitor, you know. Right. And it was funny. It was almost like WSU and the Cougs. I mean, it was like there was farmers that went to George, and there was farmers that went to Dad and Gene,
blue shirt.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And when George announced that he'd purchased the land where Red Apple Grocery is now, and he was going to put a brand new hardware up there, I thought, well, it's over. It's over, you know. And I can remember going into Dad and telling him, and he said, "Oh, I knew this was going on." And I said, "I can't believe it." I said, "What are we going to do?" And he said, "We're not going to do anything other than treat people fair and take care of our customers just like we always have." He said things will work out. If it was a good decision for George to move over there and it works out for him, he said more power to him.
What an abundant mindset to
and
have,
if not,
right? Yeah.
Well,
you know, we may end up having to do something to get bigger. We may have to change, you know, things we're carrying in the store, the variety. Maybe we're going to have to get out of this and go into this. That was one of Dad's biggest reasons for loving the hardware business forever was he said, you know, when you own a hardware store, he said, if you own a fishing store, you own a fishing store.
Yeah.
You know, if you own a Radio Shack, you own a Radio Shack. When you own a hardware store, he says, who's to say what you can or cannot sell? And he said, I want you to always keep that in mind. And I did. And I can remember being into things. I can remember, I don't know if you remember this, we sold phones. When novelty phones came out,
like Mickey Mouse's and those.
Yes, there was
really?
pickle phones. There was you know anything you could
Flip
think
phones
of.
were a big deal.
There was decorative phones. There was Snoopy phones. There was Pink Panther. I mean, there were every kind of phone. And it just blew up. It just took off.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone had a landline then.
Yeah.
And I was just enthralled with it. I thought it was really cool. You know, these phones were just. They were just bitching, and Dad said, "Well, you're going to take care of that." And I can remember we carried
that's so funny.
some other stuff in electronics as well. We used to carry a phone line. We had 8 feet of radios, you know,
Wow.
and we carried some small TVs, and we carried all kinds of walkie-talkies. Yeah. And so I went down to Consumer Electronics Show for the first time, you know, in Vegas. And I went with my cousin Greg, Marvin's son from Seattle, and he worked for Magnolia Hi-Fi. And so we hooked up and went and had a room, you know, shared a room. And there was a ton of these phone companies, you know, at the CES show. And My dad, I thought he was going to let me go. I mean, this order came in from the Consumer Electronics Show, and we had probably 12 feet, of 4.5, 5
You
foot
think you're down
island
there getting too many free
with,
drinks in
with
Vegas?
phones. And Dad said, "You're going to
Ordered.
sell these, by God, every one of them."
That's funny.
And that was his exact words. He said, "You better sell every one of these
That's a
phones."
great memory.
And I did. And we reordered them. And he said, "Well, I never thought those things would sell.
Yeah.
I never thought they'd sell, but they did." But he said, "This is going to come to an end." And I said, "Why would it come to an end?" He said, "It's just going to. It's a fad, and it's going to come to an end." And he was right. We probably had that run 6, maybe 8 years.
Well, cordless phones became a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
cordless. We carried a lot of cordless phones. That was a really big deal for a long time.
Yeah.
But it did. The novelty phone business just slowly petered out. There was nothing left of it.
Yeah.
No one cared. And then of course we went to cordless phones, and then we went to I don't know when cell phones came in, but yeah. And so things changed like that. But back to Valley Hardware, George did go in, and he had he built a really nice store. In fact, it might have been too pretty, because when you went in the front doors, you had to walk. There was he had 2 sets of doors open, and I think one was like an entrance and one was an exit, but there was 2 sets of doors, not like now where they're right next to each other. It was over here and over here. And I remember they had a giftware section right up front. Beautiful. I mean, brand new fixtures. Everything was new,
Expensive.
And they had carpet. And Dad all of a sudden we started seeing farmers that used to trade with him coming into our store. And I was like, "What's going on? So-and-so's in here." Dad said, "You know what he told me?" And I said, "What?" He said, he just came in from the orchard and he had mud on his boots and he wasn't going to walk over that carpet.
He felt bad about making
He
the
felt
carpet
bad
dirty.
about going in there. It wasn't okay to go in there.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, that sounds weird. So it was nothing to do with George's service or whatever. And then George ran it, and I think he decided he just didn't want to.
Well,
He put it up for sale, and it ended up actually selling, for a grocery store instead of the hardware store they liquidated.
Which is a great location for a grocery store.
But that's why that building's there. It's kind of
it's a
interesting.
big building.
That's why that building's there, is because George
Interesting.
Valley Hardware built
but
it.
that highlights a great point about entrepreneurship. And, people that have not been self-employed or taken a chance and been their own business owner, I think there's this perception that all business owners are rich, or they don't have to work, or
everyone thinks everyone else is doing great.
Yeah, and it just shows you like that was one mistake.
Yeah,
that might have been a difference maker, because the margins are, the margins are not in almost any business these days, especially, but almost forever. They're not huge.
No, they're slim.
I mean, if you're huge, you're gouging people. They'll figure, they're not going to work with you anyways.
Nope.
So you have these decisions that are so interesting that what you did yesterday that worked may not work tomorrow.
That's right.
And if you make the wrong call and there's no crystal ball, I mean, it's in everything. Like real estate's the same way.
You got to pivot quick.
Yep.
You got to pivot super quick and live on the low and invest in the high and try to do all these things. And
that's what Dad was. And everyone's heard this before, but diversification. Yeah. Dad always was a huge pusher of diversification. He said, you can't just rely on this hardware store. He says, you've got to, and he said, you can't rely on Social Security. He said, don't ever rely on Social Security.
Yeah, well, he's right.
He said, if you get it, great. If you get a little bit, great. But you can't say, well, that's what I'm going to retire on, because he said, you don't even know what's going to be there. And that was 40 years ago he told me that, And I'm not saying I'm against Social Security. I think it is something we should have, but I'm just saying, it's like Dad always wanted to be as much in control of his own destiny as he could be, and he was always doing everything he could to cover his bases. Yeah. And so real estate was huge. Dad loved real estate. He loved anything that when you got done with the rush, you could see what you'd done.
Tangible.
That's why he liked the orchard. He swore he'd never have an orchard. He used to tell my sister, oh my God, those guys are crazy. You couldn't pay me to have an orchard. And then, in 1977, he buys that property up there for Herman Schultz and starts developing it into orchard.
Yeah.
It's
hilarious.
And he lived up there. He absolutely loved it up there. He'd work Monday.
Well, Gene fell in love with his orchard.
Gene did too, and Gene had orchard longer than Dad did by quite a ways.
Does he still have the place out at Tower Flats?
Yep.
That little block out there?
Yep.
Yeah, by Frags?
Yeah, and he bought more. Years ago he bought more. He bought that cherry, that plot out there from a little bit further out past his place that, I'm trying to think, Sherd. He bought Bill Sherd's old place from Norma. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but that was all hard. I mean, my dad, if I could say one thing, and I don't regret anything, but he was working all the time.
So
we went fishing and hunting together.
Yeah.
I think 4 times.
Yeah. I know the feeling. My dad, I was lucky because my dad and Sackett's and Sweeney's and Pittman's and so many families in that time were rodeo people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky that my dad loved rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing. He loved taking me to these junior rodeos, like rules.
Right.
So we had a rat pack of a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
In that age, that was our vacation.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for that, we went fishing like 2 or 3 times. It was like.
And Dad loved to fish and he loved to hunt, but we just.
And that's the thing about self-employed.
There was always something.
People would say that to me all the time too. Like, you work all the time. I'm like, is it work? I mean, it's work, right? It's risky. I've been broke and I've had money and I've been broke and I've had money. I mean, I've been through up 36 years of doing it in the sandbox. But when you love something, I feel so lucky.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I just feel so lucky that it's not, when I wake up at 3, 4 in the morning and I'm thinking about, I just love it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an addiction.
Brogan came into me and I've told him this and Dad told me this. But years ago, I'm trying to think, I'll say the name wrong, but there was a gal at Manson and her husband had died a number of years before and she was alone and I knew her for years and I really liked her. She was just a real likable gal and she had rheumatoid arthritis, horrible. I mean, her hands were just bent up, right? And I remember this gal came in one day and she came into the electrical section. I was running the electrical and I asked if I could help her. And I knew her, I didn't know her name, but I knew that I'd seen her, And she said, I'm trying to come up with something to make it easy for this gal that I help, kind of caretake, turn a light on and off. Because she does love to read, and that's the one thing she can still do is she can sit and read, but she has no strength in her fingers to turn this lamp on and off. And it's got to be something really easy. I mean, it's got to be something where she can just almost like lay her. And I said, you know what? And of course, this is 25, 30 years ago. I said, you know what? I said, I came up with these 2 items and put them together. And I said, between these 2, if you do this and you do this, she's going to be able to just touch this and, turn the light on and off. And I didn't know who the lady was, right? And so I said, we got all done and we went up to checkout and she said, okay, well, what do I owe you for this? And I said, it's like $42 or something, because it was a couple of expensive parts. There was a dimmer and something else involved in it. And I said, but you know what, I'm going to buy this. I want to buy this for her. And see, so I kind of assumed that she maybe didn't have the money. I don't know why I did that, but it was just the way this gal talked. And it didn't matter. It was like, I just wanted to do this for her because I felt, an empathy for her physical, condition. So I don't think I heard anything for probably a month. I got a card in the mail. And I would have never guessed it would have been this woman, right? That note was worth more than $1 million to me.
Thanking you.
Wow.
Yep. And what's funny is she put a check in there.
For $42.
She put a check in there for the amount of the bill.
Yeah.
And then she sent another $50 with it. to put towards someone else that
Carry
might need a
forward.
hand like that.
Carry it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, look
So-
at and that's amazing that you're so passionate and emotional about something that happened 25 years ago that still touches you about what you do for and why you do it.
That's the stuff you remember, Russ.
That's awesome, man.
Well, and the way you talk about your dad,
the
it sounds
profit,
like
money's
it's the
money,
same.
profit's profit. But
Yeah.
So where I was going with this is Brogan had a similar situation about 3 weeks ago with an elderly couple in town, and he came to me when I got back from lunch and told me the whole story. And I said, and I told him this story, and I said, I said, that's the profit. That's the real profit.
That's cool that Brogan's there working with you now, and you're already 100 years and, it's continuing. That he gets to learn those lessons that your dad taught you and you get to teach him. That's pretty special.
Yeah, no, I'm very fortunate. Brogan's got a big heart, and he likes people, and he's learning every day, just like I still am at 65. I mean, there's just always something to learn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's another thing I like about that business is it's so diverse that you're just learning about different things all the time.
Right.
It was kind of interesting. Marshall Miller came in. I don't know. It's probably been a month ago, and he knows Brogan, and he came in and he said, "Hey, I've got something." And Marshall likes old stuff. Mm-hmm. Marshall's an old soul. I'm an old soul.
Yeah.
Brogan's an old soul. I just like old stuff that worked and was practical and was simple. Yeah. So Marshall comes in and he's got a miner's lamp, right? And he doesn't know where to get any of the stuff for it. Well, Brogan had found or come across a miner's lamp, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and he just got all involved in it. He was thought it was so cool that you dump these tablets in, and then when you put the water in, the water and the tablets made a gas, and that gas became the fuel for the miner's lamp, right?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so when Marshall came in, of course, Brogan knew exactly where the fuel, and we had some. We actually had some fuel, but we couldn't find it. I'd had it left over from the 50s or 60s. I mean, we used to sell, it was a common item on the shelf, just like dynamite was.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have dynamite on the shelf, for years.
Yes.
I can remember, well, there's a relative, no, it's not a relative of yours. I was thinking it was, but do you remember Mullins's?
Uh-huh.
You remember Bernie, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But Bernie's brother, he did all the blasting around the valley. Do you remember that? Bill Mullins.
I don't remember the blasting, but
Oh my God, Bill blasted all the rock up at the orchard for Dad and took out all kinds of stuff up there. But anyway, Marshall couldn't believe Brogan knew about this, and he was so excited, and Brogan got him we ordered in a little can of these pellets, and
they still make them.
And when it came in, Marshall came in to pick it up, and Brogan, took it and put everything together and lit the lamp for him, and I mean, they were just beaming, both of them.
Oh, that's so funny.
Such a simple thing.
Yeah,
but
right.
Anyway, no, that's what's fun about it, and like I say, that the real profit, and just like you sell a piece of property to someone that they've just really been looking for, and you find it for them. Man, that's like,
That's huge. I'd much rather, that's the thing I tell people is like sometimes a single wide. I had a deal in Manson once that everybody told somebody, this person grew up there in Manson, pretty close to where I grew up. They had this old single wide, not financeable. He said it was impossible, and then she really wanted it because it's what she could afford. It was right next to where she grew up, and there's a lot of nostalgia there. And I just figured out how to finance it for her by writing it up a little differently, right?
Right.
It was all perfectly above board and stuff, and it was just how you looked at it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else was looking at it that way.
Land loan versus a mobile home loan or whatever.
Yeah, exactly what it was. And then, and all of a sudden, I mean, for literally 15, 20 years, she's been telling everybody that how appreciative she was. I mean, she never forgot that. And that's the kind of stuff, when you can help somebody that's really passionate, that to me means a lot. Or when something's very difficult to sell and they need to sell it from as much as they can get. And so you figure out creative ways to get things done. And that's the same thing in our business. You never stop learning. It's always changing. And in fact, right now, I was telling somebody in a training that I did in Wenatchee office yesterday that I think AI is going to basically level up IQ. And yet emotional intelligence is not leveling up. Like, so in other words, to me that means the deck's going to get reshuffled on who's the best and who's not. And if you're brand new, you can go right to the top if you can combine emotional intelligence with actual IQ intelligence. But like my younger agents have a harder time talking to people. They'd rather text and email. And then and some of the older guys that have a harder time with tech. And so both kind of segments in time have things to work on. You know, I should be much better at technology than I am. You know, but Nicole is good at that, and I have my sister, who's my oldest sister, you know, is working, and so we're trying to combine strengths within a team at my office here in Chelan, and so it's just kind of a funny time where, to me, it's challenging.
Yeah.
You always got to be on your A game. I mean, you better keep bringing it, and I bet in the hardware store business, it's the same thing. You better not let up.
Yeah.
My biggest fight right now in the store is I feel like I see things. There's change happening that's okay. It's inevitable, and then there's change happening that to me is not positive.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree with
and
that.
what I mean by that is
That's just in life, right?
yeah, but it like in this condition, I guess what I mean by that is, you know, AI, and I don't know sikkim about it. I mean, I know the basis of how it works and whatnot, but it's still no different than, you know, it depends. It's like, okay, well, you get this whole group of answers put into this pot, and then the average of those is going to come out as the answer to AI, right? Who put those together? What pot was it? What got, you know, there's all these things that come in. I mean, you guys have had AI pop up when you're online with a company. Have you got any questions? You know, do you want to chat? No, I don't want to freaking chat. Go. That just irritates the crap out of me. But I have gone on one just to see what happened. It didn't even have a clue what I was talking about. Okay, and that was AI. Now this was a year or so ago, but it was AI. So someone will get on AceNet or Ace Hardware's website, because we're an Ace store, and they'll get on and they'll find a barbecue, right?
Okay.
And they're used to everything's manned on this phone. They're doing everything on their phone, and I understand that's what they're used to, and that's to them, that's the way to go, and that's the answer. But they'll get on this phone and they'll look this barbecue up, and then they look and Kelly's Hardware's got one of these barbecues in stock. It says, okay. Well, maybe we had 2 barbecues and one of them went out and was damaged, and it came back on a policy A claim, warranty claim, and it hasn't been adjusted yet. Okay, there's nothing that's going to ever be absolute real time when you've got humans involved. There's always going to be a fault, right? So then the person they say, they click, or they say, we're coming to get this barbecue, and then they show up, and we haven't had a chance to look at the email or the thing that comes through. And maybe the guy drove from Wenatchee or Antioch or up the Methow, and he gets there and there's no barbecue there. And he's upset, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. But nothing's ever going to replace, this is just the basis of this, nothing is ever going to replace communication, one-on-one communication. So I have pushed and pushed and pushed for Ace Corporate to put on their website, when someone finds an item, any item, please call your local dealer before assuming, that all this information is correct. Just make a call. And if they would make this one change, okay, it would still be something that people could look online, they could feel like they were getting ahead of the game and find what they want, blah, blah, blah. But then they just call. And so they get a hold of me. Let's say, I don't care who they get a hold of, but they get a hold of me and they say, yeah, well, I guess was online and I see this Weber barbecue and it says you have one, and I'm like, let me go check. Let me just double check that for you before you make the trip down. Okay, now we've saved everyone, right? Time, wasted time, everything else. When here they're trying to save time by doing this, it ends up actually being the exact opposite.
I believe that.
And the other thing that comes into play here, and this comes into play in any business, but yours, the guy might say, well, yeah, I want a 2-burner Weber, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? We haven't had good luck with that barbecue. I've got one right here, but I'm not going to reorder another one. I've got U.S. North American made Broil King, Broil Mate, Onward Manufacturing Company barbecue that's way better built than that Weber. It's made in North America, not China, and it's $150 less. Are you interested in that one?
Wow.
Well, you bet I am. Okay, we just had a 2-minute conversation and solved an hour's worth of wasted time.
Yeah.
Another example on this barbecue thing, we had this lady last spring from Seattle, had a place up at the Lookout, wanted a barbecue up there because they were going to do a nightly rental with it, right? Mm-hmm. She got on, she found a barbecue, she ordered it, it came in. We had the paperwork, it spits out this paperwork. She's going to be in on Friday to pick it up, or they want it delivered. Set it up. We set the barbecue up. Guess what the barbecue was? Natural gas. She ordered a natural gas barbecue. We don't have natural gas here. It doesn't say. It doesn't say on the front of the box, this is a natural. It's in little teeny print. It's the same model. It's a Spirit Model 570, but it's natural gas, not propane. So we ended up with a natural gas barbecue. She was mad.
Shipped out and just booked it.
I had a one-on-one talk with her, and she understood when we got done. I mean, I was able to calm the thing down, and she understood. We got another barbecue. We delivered it propane, but I said, see, if you would have just called us, and I said, I'm not blaming you. I'm blaming Ace for this. Yeah. There should be a little tag right at the bottom that says, before you order, please make a call.
Here's the thing, though, Pat. It's funny because I agree with you 100%. I have a theory at my office that old school is new school. Mm-hmm. That's what I say. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether it's handwritten notes or talking to human interactions or more event-driven or social-driven where you actually have people together talking.
Just like we're doing.
Yeah. Just like we're doing. And it's one of the reasons we did the podcast,
yep.
right? Long form. A lot of people told us to do short form. Just do your podcast, but do it like 10 minutes. I'm like, how? That doesn't make any sense. We could cut shorts out of stuff for the videos, but...
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of people who don't watch these,
Yeah.
Honestly, my wife, she won't watch them because she can't. She does not want to spend that much time watching something. Yeah. And she's not a real historical buff. Yeah, and I'm not putting her down. That's just her personality, and there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, and I have a whole... there's generations now that literally, like us, didn't have the internet, didn't have didn't have cell phones, didn't have a lot of things growing up. And there's also generations, and this is where we debate about this a lot, or have conversations about it a lot. I don't know if we debate about a lot of stuff, though. I need more men in my office, that's what I know for sure.
Uh-oh.
I'm getting told what to do a lot. It's probably good for me, but I've got a lot of girls telling me what to do these days. It's good, but I say...
you got to cut on this.
Cut.
Can you dub this stuff out,
buddy?
buddy?
Can we actually make this a clip?
We got 2 or 3 things here where I'm going to see them. The scissors are going to get used here a little bit.
You know what I'm talking about. But I believe that the problem that I have is that it's generationally challenging for people to have conversations. Like, it's legitimately like public speaking.
They're being trained not to.
Yeah, I had one.
And when I say trained, I don't mean there's actually training going on. There's no training going on, and so they're not comfortable. Nope.
You've never had a chance to have critical thinking because you've never been outside causing havoc, and then you had to fix it. So there's, like we did, get the hell out there, cause a fire, you got to figure out how to put it out, right?
Yeah.
Nothing like that, or crashing Jeeps and go-karts and motorcycles.
That's right. We got to get this out of the ditch because we're not calling Dad.
Yeah, right. We got to figure it out.
We're going to get our butt kicked if we do, so we're going to get it out of the ditch.
I realized it when one of my agents told me, we were in a training, and he sat me down, and he was a young guy, and he goes, look, I'll do whatever you want. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to learn from you. You've been around forever. But honestly, Russ, he goes, when you call someone, don't you understand that it's an insult to call someone? It's rude without getting permission by texting them first. And he was dead serious, and he's a smart guy. And I was like, that's kind of when I went, I'm sounding like my dad did to me. Like, I walked uphill both ways in 3 feet of snow, barefoot, that kind of, that's how I'm sounding. And I was like, what does that mean? And I still feel old school is new school. I feel like if you differentiate, just like emails were awesome in the beginning because our mailbox was full of junk mail. Mm-hmm. And now the mailbox, because a lot of people are online billing, there's less things in the mailbox. So if you send somebody a handwritten note today, it will actually have way more power than an email.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because there's
Absolutely.
10 million spam emails, right?
absolutely.
So it's like you have to kind of watch and sometimes differentiate yourself from your competition the way you can to provide a value that is different and evolving, just like in any business, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think I love about real estate. It's not, I mean, it's just like hardware stores. They're not all created equal. I mean, there's different levels of different strategies and different expertise and different experiences that, and there's a lot of good people too, right? A lot of really good real estate brokers. But the barrier to entry is pretty low, so there's a whole lot that are not as good.
You know what I was thinking when he was talking?
Yeah.
About how you used to get phone calls and people would want to buy something or look at something, but you would sell the information. You would, like, realtors only had all the listings, right? And it wasn't, like, online. It wasn't easily accessible.
She's like, what is that? Yeah, so like store frontage was a big deal because walk-ins were a huge deal.
Right, because now people are like, oh, I want this, but they don't really know that they don't want that because of what they actually want over here, but they don't ever call anybody and ask.
No.
What I tell
Especially,
people,
you know, people that don't live here, right? You have so many second home buyers.
What I tell them is, like, in the beginning we sold information because there was a secretarial service that had a book that we got a couple times a month, and the only way to get the access to what was for sale is to go to a real estate office. That was the way it was for a couple generations. And now we have to sell interpretation of information.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're talking about the barbecue. The value proposition from you to the client when they call you is that you know.
That's it.
What it is.
And
you know
so,
what they should get.
And so back to the majority. That's not the majority.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we're facing this problem, okay, is because there's a lot of ACE stores, the majority of ACE stores probably, I'm going to guess, are owned by so in other words, they're not owner occupied, right? They have a manager. They're not ACE. There is ACE corporate stores, but there's a lot of like there's a group out of Hawaii that owns a whole slew of ACE stores in Washington and whatnot. And so when you've got people and when you've got turnover, you know, when you've got a lot of turnover because no one really cares about their job, they just need a job, right? I just need a job, and you're not passionate about it, and the turnover's all the time, then you're going to have to rely on AI. Which ACE just came out with an AI thing for the phones of all of your employees. So if someone comes in and says, I need a paint for a whatever, they just go right to their phone like they do everything else, and they pull up what AI suggests, okay? This was just announced at a meeting I went to in Yakima about 2 months ago. And I just voiced my opinion, and of course everyone thought I was an idiot. And except for about 4 people, and I didn't make it negative. I just said, well, let's think about it from this side. Well, then I started something. This guy that has a place in Tillamook, he's got a big lumberyard and hardware, and he was right with me, and he jumped on this guy from Ace Corporate, and then another person jumped on, and then Tenaskett's Ace Hardware jumped on him. And pretty soon, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to a meeting where no one asks questions. And then you finally think, you know, this is ridiculous. I'm going to ask a question. And so you ask a question, and then all of a sudden everyone starts putting their hand in the air because you've broke the ice.
You got the permission.
They really do have questions. They're just scared to death to say anything because it's like, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. Well, maybe he doesn't. Question authority. There's nothing wrong with questioning authority, right? And I think ACE is a great company. I like them, but they are doing they're going right the way everyone else is going, you know what I'm saying?
It's a tidal wave for sure. But I think my whole point is that
I feel like
the same
being
as yours.
different is going to be the answer.
I agree.
And I may be completely wrong on that, but I'll be fine with it because it was my decision, and I thought about it a lot.
And you got like 7
I'm not
generations.
gonna blame anyone else.
You got like 7 generations of customers too. So having a little bit of everything, especially that, is damn important.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing I think of your store, like from the outside looking in, is you've managed to always have really good people. From the outside.
Oh, we've been so blessed, Russ.
I mean, when you walk into Kelly's Hardware versus a Walmart or any box store, superstore, that's the immediate difference. Can I help you? Old school. Yeah. Even from the front, the girls at the front counter to the people standing there waiting to help you if they're not busy doing something else. And then, here, let me show it to you. Can I help you with that? What nut do you need? They'll find like everything you can think of.
Right.
You've had great people for a long time.
We're very, very blessed.
Yeah.
Very blessed. Because the hardware store is not, my dad and Gene and myself and Brogan. The hardware store is the employees. I mean, yes, we are on the floor, and that is different because a lot of managers, owners aren't on the floor, but it still is all on the employees and their attitudes,
When did you guys go with Ace?
When did we go with Ace, you
Yeah.
mean? It's 72, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
Before that, we were with Jensen Bird Company out of Spokane. We actually were with Jensen Bird after Ace for years. We were with Marshall Wells before we were with Jensen Bird. And then there used to be, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, there was a lot of independent hardware wholesale houses. I mean, there was Seattle Hardware Wholesale. That was a big wholesale hardware company. Spokane Hardware Wholesale. Wells and Wade in Wenatchee had a wholesale division that we bought from for years, and they were very competitive. They were very competitive with other places. I used to drive down to Wenatchee and pick stuff up from Wells and Wade's electrical wholesale. We'd pick up. Wells and Wade had their own canvas shop. You remember that probably. They made picking bags. They manufactured them there. They wholesaled them. We bought picking bags from
My
them.
mom actually worked for Western Auto. Wasn't that a hardware store? That's a hardware store, wasn't it?
Yep.
In Manson.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember the Western Auto in Manson. No, I heard about it, but I don't remember it myself. But I remember Western Auto in Chelan. That's right where Chelan Realty was.
I remember Seabay Hardware. And
Yep.
and then,
And here's another thing. This is kind of interesting, and I'm just throwing this out. But I feel like we always had a great relationship with everyone in town. I mean, we had a good relationship with George Freeman that had Valley Hardware. Dad would call him, say, "Hey, George, we're out of this. Have you got, or we're filling an up lake order. We've got 5 pipe nipples and we need 2 more. If you got a couple I can run over and grab, and you can go over there and grab them." We had an account at Valley Hardware. We'd go buy it, and we didn't make any money on those 2, but we filled the order and got it up lake. Mackey's, we had a great relationship with Mike and Karen for years and years.
oh, Green,
Kurt that owned Seabay, we had a great relationship with Kurt and Cinda.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't. It just.
Well, it sounds like your dad was like that too, and having an abundant mindset, just completely. I'm happy for your success, and I found that in real estate is it comes back tenfold.
Yeah.
If you just help anybody, I mean, I have a policy that I'll help. I don't care who you are or what brokerage you're from. If you need somewhere to sit down and write something up you could be from Windermere downtown. You want to use my office? You want to use your printers down? I don't care.
Right.
Whatever it is, right? And we get a lot of calls from people in Seattle that are, asking us to do a lot of things. Sometimes it gets a little bit like, you want us to do all of the work. And I still will do most of it, but unless it's abused. But, it's funny what people will ask you.
Well, you remember the old Christmas movie, where the Santa Claus told the guy remember the Christmas movie? Where he told him no, we're out of that, but Macy's will have it.
Yeah.
And I'll call them and find out if they got any in stock and to hold one for you. And the lady said, "What?" You remember that in that Christmas movie? It's same thing.
Yeah. Well, where do you think the future is for you? How many are you going to be in that floor forever?
Well, I really like what I'm doing. Always have. I'm very blessed in that way. It's a tough business to run on your own. I ran it for 2 years by myself after Gene retired, and I did it, but it wasn't as much fun because you just had more responsibility.
Yeah.
So I think the key, because I question a lot of guys, about, look at Tom Allen, for crying out loud. He's almost 80 years old, and he's still up here running a shovel. It just blows me away.
He loves it.
There's a lot of guys like that, and then there's a lot of guys that are like, "Oh, you should retire," and then you see a lot of these guys retire, and my gosh, 2 years later they're gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know why or what the psychology of that is. I just know that the only thing I've ever wanted is to be able to do something when I want to, because that
Freedom.
isn't something that I had the freedom of doing. And I shouldn't say I didn't have the freedom. I could have, but I wouldn't. And it was because Gene didn't and Dad didn't, you know. I mean, I don't know if you get that way.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's like you won't let yourself do something because, you know, your dad didn't do it that way. Or you don't, why would I want to be the first one to do that, you know? Yeah. And I understand that, it really is, it's a responsibility. And I feel like any restaurant, any store you go into where there's owner occupation, it's a better experience, and that business tends to do better.
Yeah.
I'm not faulting. There's a lot of guys that run a store with or a restaurant with a manager, and they're very successful. I am not that person. I'm not that person. I keep touching that mic. Sorry about that.
Oh.
I'm not that person, and I wouldn't know even how to do it, because I probably wouldn't know how to let go enough to do it. But as long as Linda and I can. Go do something when we want to, get away for 2 or 3 days here and there, even a couple of weeks a year, 3 weeks a year. I mean, I've never taken a 3-week vacation. I've been gone 10 days, I think, twice in my life, and that's it.
Wow.
Well, you
but
deserve whatever
I
you
guess
want.
that's what I love. That's all I want to be able to do is just,
You know what I admire about you? I just found out this the other day. You don't have one of these.
Never owned one.
That's amazing. Because I'm
Paul
sure
Palumbo
it's so
and I
free.
are the only two in Chelan that don't own cell phones, right, Paul?
That's
Like,
hilarious.
that's
Paul
so
Palumbo, yep.
freeing.
Yeah,
The Lutheran minister, he doesn't have one either.
It's
Neither one of
awesome.
us do. And I've had several people say, the only other guy I know
Yeah.
that doesn't know a cell phone is, and I'll be Paul Palumbo. And they're like, how'd you know?
And we're like, well, you're the first person to ever tell me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been good, man. I really am humbled by you being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, I
And,
appreciate
it's been a lot of fun.
yeah, it was very fun. I guess I would say that, it's like we were just talking about the employees. There's not enough I can say about employees, and the other thing is my my dad used to say, it wouldn't matter how much money I made. If I bring it home and my wife doesn't manage it correctly, and do a good job with it, it doesn't matter what I make. And my dad, was fortunate in that way.
You got a good one. You guys are an amazing couple, and she's an amazing girl, and it's cool that you're so passionate and humble about it, and so emotional about how grateful you are. I can tell.
Yeah, it's very sweet. I love
Very
that.
blessed.
You're a very passionate person, my friend. I love that. Authentic, and that's a lost art of being able to be authentic and
And then the other part
honest.
is, Russ, and you agree with this, is, my gosh, how blessed are we to be able to have a job and make a living and be raised in this valley. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
yeah,
There's a lot of 20, 30 years olds that are trying to figure that out now.
yeah. It's tough right now.
I'd love to hear what you say about this, but I am so concerned, and I really mean this, with the population. The fact that I choose not to have a phone is my decision, and there's lots of times that I use Linda's phone and have for an emergency, or if we're in a bind, because she does have a phone. She doesn't abuse it by any means, but I can't tell you. I made a purchase October before last of a 1953 payphone booth out of a Midwestern department store.
Yeah.
And we put it in the front corner of the store, and it's wired up, everything works on it. And when kids come in with their folks, I take them over there. I ask their folks, can I show your kids something? And I take them over and I show them that phone booth, and I ask them questions about it. And I say, have you ever dialed a phone? Well, none of them have. What's really surprising to me is most of the kids' parents haven't.
No.
That's the age group I'm dealing with, right? Yeah. And I tend to forget that, but I can't believe a dial phone's been out that long, but it has been. But I ask them some real simple questions. I say, I have them dial the phone, and I usually have them call the store. 2 Christmases ago, we had them call Santa Claus on the phone, which was really fun. The radio club, the ham radio club came in, and the kids got a choice to either use the phone or ham radio to call Santa Claus. That was really fun.
That is fun.
I hope we can do it this year. I don't know if we're going to, but hopefully we can. But at any rate, I say, what do you think when you go in and you shut the door on the phone booth? Why do you think there's a door on the phone booth? I think I've had 2 kids say, well, to keep your phone conversation private. None of the rest of them know that, because does anyone keep a conversation private anymore?
No.
I mean, I hear people talking in the Vogue about stuff that I shouldn't be hearing about on their phone all the time, constant.
Or on
They're just
social
talking
media.
out loud,
Or
speakerphone even, you know, and
speaker.
it's like, why would you do that?
The part I just, I don't know.
And the other thing is I say, what happens when you shut the door? Well, the fan comes on, exhaust fan, and the light comes on. I'm just trying to get them to think about something different than staring at that phone and having that thing run their life, because it's just that their whole life is that phone now, and it just really, really concerns me. Huge. But I'm just trying to get them thinking, and they'll be like, I don't know, why is the fan in there? And I said, well, you know, about 80% of the population smoked.
On airplanes.
I said, any chance they had to light a cigarette, and I said if they'd go into a phone booth and shut the door, the first thing they'd do is light a cigarette while they were looking the phone number up or getting ready to dial or getting their change
phone
out.
book, they don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, because it always had like
That-
4.
It exhausted the smoke out of the phone booth, so they weren't, you know, filling it full of smoke. But I've stopped. Linda and I've been in restaurants. We were in Campbell's a couple summers ago, and we walked in one night we were going to meet someone. And I went past this table, and there was the parents, and there was 3 or 4 kids sitting at that table, and every stinking one of them was on their phone. None of them were talking to each other. They were all just glued to these phones. And so, and Linda she could just kill me for this, but I bent over to this kid because he was sitting on the end of the table, and I said, hey, ask your old man what kind of car he had when he was in high school. And he goes, what? And I said, ask your old man what kind of car he had when he was in high school. And he put the phone down and he goes, what kind of car did you have, Dad? And the guy smiled at me, and he put his phone down, and I walked away. And the other kids kind of were like, what the frick's this old guy, you know, doing? Why would he say that? We went over and sat down, and I sat purposely across here so I could see him. 2 minutes later, no one had their phones. They were all talking.
Yeah. That's that human-to-human interaction, I think, is definitely important, and we're losing it, and we're losing it fast. I mean, and social media is a good tool for a lot of positive things.
Exactly, tool, and there's a responsibility that comes with the tool.
And it's also a tool that's misused. And I think the keyboard warrior statement, which is the people that are hammering on other people, judgment. You know, it's like the Jerry Springer show of.
Oh, geez.
I mean, it's like, and what there's no consequence. Like so. I'm just curious about what the point is.
That's exactly right. There was no benefit for the end of that show. What was the benefit?
Yeah, and so you get social media is poison. I hate you, I hate you, I hate this, I hate that.
The only thing it does is pull someone off their own problems for a few minutes.
I guess.
Looking at someone else's
100%.
problems.
Is that what it is?
That's
Yeah.
it.
Dopamine hit. Oh, I'm not. This guy's horrible, so I'm better.
Yeah, it helps you distract yourself.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just distraction.
Then when you get arguments going on,
I
it's
mean,
like,
you think like 20-ish years ago,
yeah.
you had your great grandfather doing what they were doing, and now we're just scrolling on social media all day.
Yeah.
It
No,
is
I don't know
just
where it's
wild.
going. I have a 3-year-old grandson,
We were
and
not prepared for this.
and he's too good at it already. And
We'll direct him. You know, that's
Yeah.
what it takes, and that's the only reason I'm not going to give up on it. I know it's there, but I'm still going to insert my 2 cents worth, not in a negative way or a mean way. I'm just going to try to redirect them and get them to think about something different, because
I think you're right. Well, they like it. Like once you do that,
that's it. They've never had anyone do it, Russ. You're exactly right. That's exactly right.
They just don't know different.
They don't know different. And so if you show them, you know, you think about, I don't know about you, but, and it's hard right now, but I mean, if I was 30 years old, I'd have 4 or 5 businesses going, because all I do is think about, man, this would be great. Man, this would be, it's constant. And, you know, when you're working, when you're just waiting on your phone for something to happen, your friend to say something or a reaction to something. It's like, where does that ever end up? But when you do something during the day that benefits other people and it helps them, okay, at the end of the day, that's what makes you feel good.
Yeah, you know,
and that's what we're here for. We're here to help other people and to do something constructive. We're not here to stare at the TV or stare at our phone all day. No one's ever going to have any kind of an emotional state of mind that's positive by doing that.
I agree. And it's funny, my wife, we got married about 3 years ago, known each other about 10 years or so. And she's only known business Russ. She didn't know sports Russ. She didn't know farmer Russ.
Right.
And then we bought Dwayne Hubbard's place in Manson, my son and I, and we bought 15 acres it's currently orchard and a couple houses recently. And so I'm out there doing stuff.
Right.
And then she saw me drive a tractor for the first time. And she goes, man, I kind of like this farmer Russ. I've never seen that. And I was like, well, there's another reason.
Where do you see fisherman Russ?
Yeah, she goes, I saw Hunter Russ this year in Idaho. I like that guy too.
Yeah.
All I've known is business Russ.
Yeah.
I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
It's not as
Don't
sexy.
show me danger Russ.
Yeah. Show me something you can do with your hands. Get dirty, get out
That's
there.
it.
Make something happen.
So
Prune an apple
good.
tree. See what that looks like.
Uh-huh.
It's hilarious because I forget that she doesn't. She didn't know me growing up. She didn't know me when I was a farmer. She didn't know when I was working with my dad too much. So it's just funny. Like, there's a lot of reasons to not stay on the phone.
No, absolutely.
There's a lot of good reasons to get out there and do things in life instead of watching other people do them on the phone. Mm-hmm. You can actually get out there and do, especially where we live. I mean, it's like, man, there's so much opportunity.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah, that's why I like buying the land we bought, because that land to me means grandson bait.
That's it.
I'm gonna have motorbikes and
That's right.
basketball courts and
That's right.
I don't care if building shit. I mean, whatever it is, like
All my
driving
grandkids,
tractors.
Other than the youngest, all of my grandkids, and there's the oldest one 7. Okay, they all know how to start a fire by going and getting the right stuff and pulling pitch off a tree. And having one match to light a fire. They know every one of them. Yeah. What are we going to do? First thing I'll say, what are we going to do? We're going to go get pitch. And they all spread out, and they all grabbing pitch off trees, and they come back all black.
Yeah, that's perfect.
But no, and they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. They're all active kids. So
it's kind of I know
hope we
that's
have a
what I'm going to
turnaround.
be trying to do, is even if it's just throwing a ball for a dog or something.
That's right.
Anything that's outside. That's good. But this has been a lot of fun. We've been talking for almost 2 hours. I love it.
Wow. Sorry about that.
No, I love it.
Don't be.
I'm sure no one would have expected that from me.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks again,
Thank
Pat.
you.
Yeah, thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much.
Yeah,
Good friend.
pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
We're signing off one more time from Small Towns Unscripted.